Hello and welcome to another Writerly Witterings with me, the tea drinking author. Cheers! Now, last week I started changing things slightly and started looking at the best and the worst of different things. This week I've got two bests really. The first best is the fact that I've finally finished the edit on this book. That's nearly 600 pages of A4 with an awful lot of edits. It is a relief to have finished that. The other best thing was, got something to show you. A very nice gentleman sent me this Schaefer snorkel. It is absolutely gorgeous. And next week I will be doing a review on it. But for this week, what have we got? Well, we've got these two. We have Diamine Oxford Blue and Diamine Stroke Cult Pens Little Chris. So let's have a look at them. So here we are again at the standing desk with these wonderful inks. Now, before anything else, I was not impressed last week with the new ink from Diamine, Writer's Blood. But I had several comments after the video, which I can recommend. It's last week's video, but it is very interesting. And they said, well, actually, they found the same problem, that it was really boring ink, unless it was used with some really good paper like Nemosine. So I thought, you know, my viewers here, they like to find out about different alternatives. And I must admit, I find it with Nemosine a great deal better. It's a lovely colour. It has got shading. I'm going to get my extra special thing here. Let's just see if I can get this to work now. There is shading. There's also far too much light reflecting off this. So I'll just try to cover it up a little bit. That's better. Now, I don't know whether this is going to work at all, but it's actually showing. Just look at the in the there. Nice dark downstroke, slightly paler side stroke and upstroke. I actually think I'm going to put the magnifying glass away, it's just pointless. But you can see with here, for example, the L quite dark, the O darker than paler, the G going quite pale. So you get nice colour variation with the line variation is basically what I'm saying. So I would love to see this. If anyone's got a Pelican with a double broad nib or something, Chris, I'm probably thinking about you. It'd be very interesting to see how this ink works with that type of pen. But that's last week's. Now this week's, let's start off with this. Diamine's Oxford Blue. Now I've had a lot of people tell me it's just a wonderful ink, you really need to try it, and I've never found it. I don't know why, it just never was quite on my radar. So let's just have a quick look at this. I think it is one of those colours that could almost replace Prussian blue and blue black in my standard lineup. I don't like the very bright blues. Sapphire blue is a nice one. I've used a lot of that over the years, but it's just a bit too bright for general use. This, I think, would be perfectly good for business use, correspondence. I think it's just a very useful general purpose blue. I've tried it on the Nemo sign as well as this, which is Tomo River 68 or 60, whatever it is, 68 or 62. I think on the Nemo scene it gives you an even better idea of the sort of shading, having dried off for a few minutes. I think that's a really lovely colour, but it works well on the cream colour of the Tomo River as well as the white of the Nemo scene. So that gets a big thumbs up from me. And now let's get on to the very interesting indeed Little Chris. I'm just going to empty this pen and flush it. First bucket of water to clean out the ink. It's one of those things I really enjoy, is seeing how the ink patterns in the water. So this is my approach to cleaning a pen. People who have watched my videos will know this. So I flush the pen through completely and then empty it so it's ready to suck up only, and I have a pot of clear water beside me. So I can now just flush it through with clean water a couple of times. And there we have a perfectly clean pen. So now it's the turn of Little Chris. That Oxford blue I think is going to have to be replaced with a full-size bottle. That is, I think, a gorgeous colour. Sort of like a dark diamine denim, I would say. And if you haven't tried a denim, that's another nice ink to have a look at. Right, so here we go with the Little Chris. One thing I would say about Little Chris is that if you have an accident, it washes off various surfaces very easily. However, it was nearly a week ago, and you can see that the accident has still stained my finger either side of my nail. That's the sort of snippet you don't get from every reviewer. Gosh, I'm helpful. Right. So this is Diamine and Cult Pens Little Chris. Now, if you're not aware of these things, Cult Pens do a number of products of their own. One of them is a series of inks that they have produced with Diamine. This, the Little Chris, is the one that's most useful for me. It's blue with supposedly a red sheen. So let's just see. Cleverly, they have Big Chris and Little Chris. Big Chris comes in a 80ml Diamine bottle. Little Chris comes in a standard 30 or whatever these things are. Blue with... Oops. One thing I have always found with Diamine inks is that they all flow superbly well, no matter what the pen. I have had problems with Ackermann inks with their Delftsblau and also Israel Seeblau that they don't want to work necessarily in pens sometimes. It seems as though they're quite dry writers, those two inks, whereas all Diamine inks, as far as I'm aware, are just superb. So I'm going to leave that to dry for a second. I understand, I'm not an expert on sheening inks by any means, but I believe the main principle about a sheening ink is that it is a fairly wet ink, and you need to leave it to dry and not try to soak away all of the excess, because it's where the ink is sitting with its thickest concentration is where you get the sheening. I do think this ink looks lovely. It's a sort of I'd say it's a blue-black. Going off the edge of a notepad there, so it's going a bit strange. Blue-black generally. I'm writing very quickly. This is just writing at normal speed. And as you can see, very pleasant, simple blue-black sort of colour. There's my lid. There's my lid. Right. Looking at this first, I'm going to try to bring out the sheen if I can. I can't tell whether that's showing up perfectly on the camera, but I can assure you that is a really strong red sheening ink. So looking at it flat away from the light, that is just a really nice blue-black. But as soon as you get it to the light, you can see the red sheen. Hopefully you can with that. I'll take some photos in case there's a problem with that. And then when I look at it on the Nemo sign paper, he says, reaching for his glasses, I've just realised why I can't see things very clearly. It's because I haven't got my glasses on. On the Nemo sign paper, it doesn't want to sheen anything like as well. You can see that it's sort of trying, but when I look at the Tomo River paper, get back to the relevant page, that is really quite clear to me. That's a gorgeous red sheen at every possible level. Now, what's interesting with this is that I have other sheening inks too, so let's just see if I can find them. I do keep all these ink tests so that when people write to me and say, what would you recommend about this or this, I can say, ooh, yes, well, I've just looked it up and I think that would be ideal. Here we go. So the strongest sheening ink I have ever seen was this, from a delightful chap who made this ink for me. And I can see in the camera that there's an almighty red coming through there all the time. That is the strongest sheening ink I've ever tried using, and it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. This is Diamine's Majestic Blue, which does sheen. I can see it with my naked eye quite clearly. Doesn't of course mean that you can on this camera. But when I compare that to the Cult Pen's Little Chris, the Little Chris is that bit more clear to me than the Majestic Blue. So if you like a sheening ink, Little Chris is a very good one to try. Now, Cult Pens have got 2 or 3 other inks. I didn't get given the inks free of charge to test, so I only bought the 1 bottle. But there are 3 others for you to play with. If you're interested, I'll put a link to sheening inks down the bottom so you can have a look at them. It is trying to come through. I can see a bit of sheen there on the T, on the R. So it's actually quite interesting because on this paper it seems to be working quite well only where the ink was really thick and dried out, so the H and the D have behaved are very good. That's really rather interesting. So there you have 3 inks. The red Diamine Writer's Blood is infinitely better if you're using Nemesign paper. It's really not that exciting if you use it on other papers. Here's Tomo River. I've heard other people say they found it looked just flat and boring on Tomo River. I have to admit, it is a little bit better after a week's drying out. It looks a little bit more interesting. I do like the colour, very nice berry colour. But is it something I would replace ox blood or dragon's blood with? There's ox blood, not dragon's blood, red dragon. Now you see, I just find them and Sierra a great deal more interesting. That's a little bit darker, a little bit more dull. Oxford Blue, I think, is absolutely gorgeous. It's not dissimilar to the, let's see, to a darker Kensington Blue, I think it's fair to say. It's difficult trying to find something to compare it with, to be honest. Diamine Denim is a sort of darker version of it. Misty Blue is a sort of paler version of it, but pretty much I'd say it's a darker Kensington, but really nice, good ink for everyday use. Cult Pen's Little Chris, if you like a sheening ink. The only choice you've got really are Majestic Blue, which is really nice, and on this paper that's the only one that really works as a sheening ink. So if you like sheening inks, you've got to stick to Tomo River. If you want Writer's Blood, you've got to stick to Nemosine. Just goes to show that everything has its own favourite environment. So, don't know what you think about that. I like sheening inks on occasion, not for everyday use. My favourite inks for everyday use tend to be Prussian Blue and Diamine Blue Black. I also now have an absolute joy with Rohrer and Klingner, because they have some gorgeous inks. I tend not to use sheening inks that much, but when I do use them I want something that's really going to pop, and it looks like that Little Chris is a very good option if you want something of that nature. But Oxford Blue, if you haven't tried it before, I think is absolutely perfect. And Barnsley, yes, I'm going to be sending you a note with some samples of a fine nib using Oxford Blue very shortly. Sorry, this week's been very tied up because of that edit of a massive volume, which hopefully is going to result in a new book coming out soon. Oh yes, I've just been commissioned to write 2 more books in the Blackjack series, the Bloody Mary Tudor series. So there you go. If you're a reader of my books, you've got lots to look forward to. Right, thanks a lot for watching. Hope that was interesting. If you would like to support the channel, go to the bottom, there's a Patreon link, and you can also like it, share it, subscribe it, hit the bell button, the stuff you do on all YouTube videos, because that makes me happy. And you like happy authors, don't you? We like happy authors with cups of tea. So thanks a lot for watching, and speak to you soon. Cheers. And next week, we'll have a look at a Schaefer snorkel.